Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we are wrestling with, well, one of the toughest questions out there for purpose-driven movements globally.
Mm.
How do you build something that actually lasts?
Exactly.
Our deep dive today really zeroes in on this, especially looking at spiritual and cultural revitalization efforts within Indigenous contexts. We've got some source material here that's incredibly insightful
Yeah,
and, frankly, quite challenging.
it really is. And it doesn't pull any punches. Right off the bat, the research points to this central, pretty uncomfortable truth.
Okay.
It says the single biggest hurdle to sustained ministry. It isn't necessarily lack of vision or even things like persecution or poverty. Fundamentally, it's a failure of transfer.
Value of transfer. Wow, that's a huge claim, isn't it? Especially when you think about all the effort, decades of it, poured into building things up globally.
It is huge. And the material highlights this kind of quiet crisis. The failure to raise up enduring Indigenous leadership has apparently stalled more, Great Commission progress than persecution or poverty ever could.
So it's suggesting that a lot of our models, even the well-meaning ones, might actually be creating weaknesses.
Unintentionally, yes. Producing dependency, not maturity. That's the core finding.
Okay, so the mission for us today, for this deep dive, it isn't just about finding quote-unquote better leaders. It's really about unpacking why these well-intentioned models might be backfiring.
Exactly.
And hopefully equipping you, the listener, with practical ways forward. The sources mention this seed and soil framework.
That's the goal, getting practical with that framework. So let's maybe start with the core problem itself. What causes this failure of transfer?
Right. When outside partners come in, what are those? You call them invisible dynamics.
Yeah.
That end up undermining the whole effort.
Yeah, it often boils down to a confusion of roles. It's subtle. Outsiders might think their presence equals true partnership, or they confuse exercising control over the project, the direction, the funds, with genuine care for the people involved.
Okay, control versus care.
And maybe the most dangerous one, confusing financial oversight with real empowerment of the local community. When those lines get blurred, you inevitably end up with overdependence. Dependence on external structures, external money, external personalities.
I get that. It's like building this impressive external scaffolding. It looks solid while the partners are right there.
Right.
But what happens when they step back, when that support is pulled?
The whole thing risks collapse because the local walls, the local capacity, they were never really allowed to bear the full weight, never given that full ownership. The sources paint this picture of the Indigenous leader standing at this crucial intersection, trying to guide their people, holding on to ancient wisdom and community identity.
While also navigating modern systems, outside aid, complex organizations.
Exactly. And movements falter there, not usually from a lack of calling, but just from a lack of continuity. The transfer wasn't built in.
So this really shifts things. We need to stop seeing it as just a leadership problem. Like, find the right person, train them, and view it as a fundamental transfer problem.
Yes, that's the critical shift.
And if we make that shift, how does our whole approach change? What does that look like on the ground?
Well, the big philosophical pivot is moving away from building, let's call them personal empires, whether that's the local founder's legacy or the outside partners project.
Right.
The focus has to be on establishing locally rooted ecosystems, things designed from day one to outlive any single founder or partner. The transfer has to be intentional, structural, baked in.
It makes me think of that scriptural contrast you sometimes see between control and genuine release.
It's very much aligned with that. You look at Paul and Timothy. Paul raised him up like a son, yes, but to release him into independent ministry, not to keep him close as a student forever. Jesus himself modeled multiplication through empowerment, right? Giving away authority, sending people out, not creating a system that depended entirely on his physical presence.
That's a powerful point. If the system needs the founder or the outside partner to stick around indefinitely,
then it's not actually modeling enduring multiplication. It's modeling dependence.
Got it. Okay, so if transfer is the goal, we need to diagnose the environment first, understand what's blocking it. You mentioned these resistance points. The sources call them dragons.
Yeah, the dragons at the gate. We can sort of group them into three buckets: cultural, structural, spiritual. And the first one, well, it's maybe the sneakiest, dependency and paternalism.
Okay.
The sources have this really evocative term for it, the golden cage.
The golden cage, I like that. What are the signs? How do you know if a movement is stuck inside this gilded cage?
You see it when foreign resources, foreign agendas, foreign decision-making are just dominant. The local leaders might have the titles, but in reality, they're implementers of someone else's vision, not the owners.
So like practical examples.
Things like parachute interventions, short, often expensive visits where outsiders come in and do for the community rather than do with them.
Creates an expectation of rescue, maybe.
Exactly. Or theological imperialism, importing theology or worship styles that haven't been contextualized, that feel foreign and don't quite resonate.
So the structural issue here, even if the aid is helping meet immediate needs, is that the control dynamics, who holds the money, who makes the final call, actually weaken local initiative over time.
Yes. And that's the tough part for partners who genuinely want to help. Good intentions can mask these power imbalances.
Right.
But if you're controlling the funding, you hold the power. And unless there's a very clear intentional plan to shift that power, dependency is almost inevitable.
That's a hard truth. Okay, let's move to the second dragon. This one focuses on the leaders themselves, the exhausted shepherd, leadership burnout. Why is this such a risk, especially for Indigenous leaders?
The burden they carry is just immense. It often goes way beyond typical ministry roles. They're navigating cultural survival, land rights issues, deep spiritual guidance for their communities.
While often juggling the expectations of external partners, too.
Precisely. And there's often this cultural expectation of constant strength, showing vulnerability. That can be seen as unacceptable. Weakness.
But then that leader inevitably burns out, because who wouldn't under that pressure?
Yeah.
The fallout is huge.
Devastating. You lose more than a person.
Yeah.
Ministry gets disrupted. Trust can be broken. And potential future leaders, they see the cycle and might think, I don't want that. It leads to a talent drain.
Wow.
And the fascinating thing is, the ancient wisdom on this is actually structural. Look at Jethro's advice to Moses in Exodus 18.
Ah, right. Share the load.
Exactly. Moses was trying to do it all. Jethro didn't say pray harder or try harder. He said, change the structure. Delegate authority to capable people. Build a system that can handle the weight so the leader doesn't collapse.
So burnout isn't necessarily a personal failing, but a system design flaw.
That's the key insight. If the whole thing hinges on one person's superhuman strength, it's designed to fail eventually.
Which leads us neatly into the third dragon, the hoarded flame. This is about the fear of multiplication, isn't it? Why would a successful leader resist raising up their own replacement?
It often comes down to fear, deep-seated fear. Fear of being replaced, maybe losing status. Fear of being shamed if their successor doesn't do well. And in some cultures, there's the desire to hold on to relational capital, patronage systems. Giving away authority feels like giving away your social standing, your power base.
And the sources connect this to a specific theological warning.
They do. It mirrors the servant in the parable of the talents who buries his gift out of fear.
And gets condemned for it, because there was no multiplication.
Right. The mandate, especially in that Timothy 2.2 model, is explicit. Entrust what you have to reliable people who will be qualified to teach others also. The flame has to be passed on, shared, not hoarded by the founder.
Okay, so we've diagnosed the dragons. Now, how do we slay them? Or maybe how do we cultivate the soil so they can't thrive? This brings us to the seed and soil metaphor, moving from diagnosis to action.
Exactly. If the gospel is the seed and the people and their culture are the soil, then enduring leadership isn't about just dropping foreign seeds and running off. It requires patient cultivation, learning the soil.
So what are the guiding principles for that kind of partnership, the non-negotiables?
The sources lay out 3 key theological principles. First, incarnational presence, meaning being there long enough to listen, grieve, celebrate, and learn. You can't cultivate soil you don't intimately know. It takes time, real presence.
Okay, what's the second?
Subsidiarity. Fancy word, simple idea. Decisions should be made at the lowest possible competent level. Outside partners should enable, not supplant. The local community knows its context best. Let them lead.
Enable, not supplant. I like that. And the third one, you mentioned it seems to require the most courage from outsiders.
It probably does. It's risk-bearing and exit orientation.
Exit orientation, meaning plan your exit from the start.
Absolutely. True partnership means being willing to cede control, to bear the risk of letting locals lead. Even if they make mistakes, you wouldn't. And it means building toward your own structured departure from day one.
Wow.
If your long-term plan doesn't include you becoming unnecessary, you're building dependence, not maturity. The exit has to be the goal.
That completely reframes the purpose of external involvement, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You're not there to build a permanent outpost. You're there to build a lasting absence for yourself.
Well put. You're working yourself out of a job, essentially.
So how do we translate these principles into concrete steps? What does this gardener's calendar look like?
It's a phased approach designed for that slow, deep growth we talked about. It starts with Phase A, soil testing.
Which means more than just needs assessment.
Much more. It's deep listening, understanding local stories, mapping power dynamics, identifying existing strengths and resources, not just listing problems, really understanding the ground you're working with.
Okay, thorough groundwork. Then what?
Then you move, hopefully quickly, into collaboration, Phase C, planting together. This is crucial. You co-draft the mission, the vision, the governance structures with a local majority.
If they don't help write it, they won't own it.
Exactly. Then comes Phase D, nurture and formation. And this has to be centered on apprenticeship learning by doing on-the-job mentorship and theological reflection that's rooted in their own stories, their own context, not just importing external curricula.
Makes sense. More durable that way. And this really solidifies only when we tackle that golden cage structurally, right? Phase E.
That's Phase E, root deepening. This is about financial independence, building local income streams, maybe social enterprises, community-based giving, whatever fits the context to reduce that reliance on outside donors.
Because if the finances aren't rooted locally,
The whole thing is vulnerable to external shifts. Winds change, donors move on. Autonomy requires financial footing.
the sources use a really powerful contrast to illustrate this, don't they? Comparing two scenarios.
They do. It's the failure. Shallow field versus the fruitful, deep roots.
Tell us about that.
The shallow field is typically short-term presence, heavy foreign control, maybe training one leader in a foreign language or system. When the funding stops or the partner leaves, the center often just collapses.
Okay. And the deep roots.
That's long-term presence, focused on building local structures from the start, maybe translating key texts into local languages, investing in local capacity, building those local funding streams. The difference is stark.
In one, the local leader feels like an employee.
In the other, they are the owner, the steward. It's the difference between a temporary project and a truly lasting movement.
That really nails it. Which brings us perfectly to our final section. Building structural resilience. What are the specific tools, the practical things leaders can put in place right now to make sure the fire doesn't go out?
Right, we need to make the transfer part of the structure, not just a hope. The single most critical tool mentioned is the handover covenant.
A handover covenant, what is that exactly?
It's a written agreement, signed early on by everyone involved, local leaders, external partners. It explicitly spells out the timelines, the specific metrics for shifting governance, the clear criteria for reaching independence.
So it makes the exit strategic, planned, a milestone to celebrate, not a crisis to react to.
Precisely. It takes the ambiguity out of it. And related to that, especially in honor-shame contexts, the actual act of delegation needs care.
How so? You can't just hand over the keys.
Not effectively, no. It needs to be honor-preserving delegation. The transition needs ritual. Public affirmation of the outgoing leader is key, maybe a title like founder counselor so that they retain status.
Okay.
And using visible symbols, a token of office, like a special staff or a woven sash, to mark the transfer of authority publicly. It preserves dignity for everyone involved.
That makes a lot of sense. We also need safeguards for the unexpected, right? The hit by a bus protocol.
Yes, a slightly morbid name, but crucial. It's about building redundancy. Identify every mission-critical role, finances, pastoral care, admin, whatever it is, and ensure at least 2 people are fully trained, know the processes, know where the documents are, build a system that can withstand the sudden loss of any one person, even the hero leader.
Simple redundancy, but often overlooked. Okay, finally, how do we measure success differently? We need to get past those vanity metrics, right? Like attendance numbers.
Absolutely. The metrics have to shift to measuring endurance, sustainability. So what do we track?
Give us the key indicators.
First, the reproduction rate, that Timothy 2.2 metric. How many new leaders has each trained leader actually raised up? Are they multiplying?
Okay, multiplication.
Second, the local financial ratio. What percentage of the budget comes from local sources versus external donors? Track that percentage increasing over time.
Financial roots.
Third, governance equity. Is the board, the leadership team, majority local? A good target is aiming for 2/3 local control relatively early, say within 12 months of a serious transition plan.
Makes sense. Local ownership in practice.
And critically, succession readiness. How many capable successors are identified and ready right now for every key leadership role? Not just one potential person, but options.
Those metrics tell a very different story, don't they? A story about deep roots, not just quick, visible growth.
Exactly. They measure health and endurance.
This has been, well, a really deep and incredibly practical dive, understanding not just how to start good work, but how to make sure it genuinely lasts.
And the shift required, really, is trading that short-term, often visible success, which paradoxically often relies on dependency for long-term, maybe less visible endurance.
Yeah.
The challenge for leaders and partners alike is to see themselves less as monuments to the work
Mm-hmm.
and more as midwives, helping the community birth its own enduring future.
Midwives, not monuments. I love that. And that really is the ultimate test, isn't it? The real measure of leadership isn't just how bright the lamp burned while you were there, holding it. But whether you place that lamp in hands and structures and institutions so capable that it's still shining brightly a decade, even a generation, after you've stepped away.
That's the goal.
So the question we leave you with today is this. What systems, what structures, what handover covenants are you building right now that will ensure the light keeps burning long after you're gone?